Hello, everyone. My name is Lynn McEntee, and I'm your humble host for Youth for Change, Spotlight on Youth Matters because you matter. And that's what it's all about, this program. And we thank Youth for Change Canada for allowing us to be here. I wanted to take a moment to do a land acknowledgement before we get started on our session with our wonderful guest today. I would like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. While we meet today on a virtual platform, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we call home. And I'd like to thank our guest for being here, Aieysha Haws, who is going to be talking with us about pop culture today. So welcome, Aieysha. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me. So I'm just going to do a brief introduction of myself, if you don't mind.
Yeah, for sure. You know what? Go for it. And then I'm going to just do a little shout out for Youth for Change for allowing us to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So my name is Aieysha Haws. I'm a singer-songwriter. I make R&B fusion, hip-hop soul music. And today we're talking about pop culture, and I'm excited to see where that goes.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. And I'm just so excited about Aieysha's openness to just see where the conversation goes. And we've posed some questions, but that we thought we'd go off script as well, too, just to see where the conversation takes us. And that's sometimes the best, right? But I did want to do an acknowledgement to Youth for Change Canada for allowing us to be here and creating this platform of a safe space to have a conversation and explore different topics of interest to youth, and one of them being pop culture. And Youth for Change Canada has a vision to provide marginalized youth with the opportunity to live wholesome, successful, enriching lives through engaging and dynamic programs while stimulating positive social change. And that's what we're about to hear today when we're talking. So Aieysha, I just wanted to take a moment and just really highlight you, but also highlight the conversation about pop culture. And I guess we can start there. In your mind, as a performer, as an artist, as a youth, I'm just going to let someone enter into our conversation here.
Not a problem.
Another person joining us today. And we'll just take a moment informally to introduce. Let's see, there we go. We're going to welcome Lucas, who's going to join the conversation. And Lucas is also a performer as well. And I'm really excited that he's joining in. So thanks for being patient with us, our audience members. And while we're waiting for Lucas to assemble, just a reminder about Youth for Change. Follow us on social media and get involved, actually. If there's anything that you're interested in or would like to see us do, please do get involved and do a shout out for any interest that you have. Lucas, you're welcome to turn on your screen. And we're just opening up the floor to the conversation. And I wondered if you could just join in that now. Let's see. So we're just waiting for Lucas. And when you're ready, Lucas, we'll just carry on with the conversation. And we're hoping that you can turn your screen on. It helps the viewers as well. And then you can be a part of the conversation.
Lynn, do you have any background about Lucas and his expertise on the conversation today before he turns in?
Oh, okay. So Lucas is trying to find his headphones. So if you're okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just stop the recording. Yeah. And then I'm going to start again, if that's all right. So I'm going to do that right now. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Lynn McEntee, and I want to welcome you to Youth for Change, Spotlight on Youth Matters, because you matter. And that's what we're talking about today, you, and in particular, pop culture. We want to do a shout out to Youth for Change Canada for allowing us to be here. Before we carry on with our programming, I would like to do a land acknowledgement. Respectfully, I would like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous people of the lands that we're on today. While we meet today on a virtual platform, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we call home. Once again, thank you to Youth for Change Canada for allowing us to be here. Please get involved, follow our YouTube channel, and follow us on social media as we continue to grow and explore different avenues in our community. And that's truly what it's about today, shining light on our youth. So today we're talking about pop culture, and I'll just take a moment to introduce our guest speaker, Aieysha Haws. And I wonder, Aieysha, if you're able to do a brief introduction before we just have Lucas say hello.
Absolutely. My name is Aieysha Haws. I'm a singer-songwriter. My sound is R&B fusion with hip hop soul and with some pop influence. And I think music is just a way of communication and therapy and just sharing our life experiences.
Nice. I like that. Lucas, if you want to take a moment to introduce yourself, and we can go from there because you're also an artist.
Yeah, so my name's Lucas. I'm a drummer. I've been playing drums since I was around 3 years old. And yeah, it's my passion. I love doing it.
That's great. Well, we're so happy to have both of you here today and be a part of the conversation, exploring what pop culture is and many definitions to it. But I'm going to start off the conversation with what you think and what you define as pop culture. And anyone can jump in. Aieysha, maybe you want to start, and then Lucas, feel free to jump in at any time. I'll mute in between just to kind of give you an opportunity. So give me a few moments to turn on my volume again, but I do want to make sure that Aieysha gets an opportunity to speak. So Aieysha, what is pop culture to you as a young person?
For me, I would define pop culture of just like a series of categories. So basically we have our icons, you have, the social factors, like the change and the passion and the power behind all of that. And then as well as like the cultural influence. So again, pop is like what's popular, and culture is like just the influence of like diverse backgrounds and different people who add to that whole sector of communication.
That's great. That's a great launching point. And so it could be in many avenues. So mass media, right? It could be, clothing, television, music, a variety of different things, right? But as you had said, popular, but also then exploring cultures as well. Lucas, how would you define pop culture to you and your own personal?
I feel like there's always it's like what's going on around the world, and like you have like people that are always up there and like always defining pop culture. Like you got your singers and your artists, and then everybody else that like revolves like that, like is around everybody in that like scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so do you think it's ever changing the landscape, right, for pop culture? Whether you look at it 2 years ago or a year ago and in present day, it's evolving and changing just as youth are evolving and changing all the time. So it's interesting just to hear different perspectives on it in the conversation, and how it affects even our mental health, for example. When you look at pop culture and mental health, I wonder if we could just take a moment to explore that and how important that is today, even like during COVID and post-COVID.
Yeah, I'll chime in on that perspective of like mental health and how pop culture has had an influence, if you don't mind. Like I would say from like my point of view in terms of like the pop culture influence, again, it goes back to like media and how that is like generally generated to our audience. And I find that like youth are at the epicenter of, pop and what the trends are. So with TikTok, a lot of people were stuck at home, but then they had their cameras, and we have like the digital stuff like Zoom and things like that connect us. So it's people all around the world taking those trends, like with entertainment, like Lucas mentioned, with, popularity of the entertainers and their music and whatnot, and making dances and stuff. So I think in a way that mentally kept us going. And also people were able to also use that same platform like TikTok to share their stories and what they go through. And that's still something that continues right now.
Nice. Yeah. Lucas, what do you think?
I feel like there's always like when like I just said, like TikTok, for example, there's people like during COVID, lots of people didn't have anything to do because either some people lost their jobs and had to start doing other things, and like it definitely put smiles on people's faces because it's something that like they look forward to doing, and even just like scrolling through and looking at videos.
For sure. So it's kept us connected around the world, and it's amazing how far we've come, right? To have this technology available to us. Yeah, go ahead, Aieysha.
Yeah, and also it's also been something that has created job opportunities. So now we have like influencers. Before, like pop culture used to be like we turn to our television and magazines for that type of stuff to see what the latest trends are in terms of like fashion, what's the social issues that people are talking about. But then now we have micro influencer, which are people online, like what they call them, like Instagram models and those people who do like their fitness online. And then we have like, you know, people like us that are artists that we post our covers, we post original music, you know, different things like that. And that's sort of like a different network of us staying connected and sharing our stories. So that keeps us emotionally stimulated as well. It gives us something to do physically and stay active, even though it's, you know, the digital age and the internet and all of that.
Right. I like emotionally stimulated for sure. That is the connection right there, right? That's so cool. So if you were to think about yourself, both of you actually, yourselves as an artist, how that has changed for you and your purpose for that emotional connection with people. How has that changed from maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago until present day?
For me, I would always see myself as actually going out and about to network with people and, you know, and to engage in different events. And I found like during the pandemic, live music kind of suffered. And then we had like even our huge icons that were doing different stuff like big shows, they then like digressed. I would say they digressed a little bit by going and doing like little things, like little platforms online to try and to keep connected with their fan base and things like that. Mm-hmm. So for myself, the internet has been a benefit, I would say, because again, like as an emerging artist, it was somewhere where you could share your stuff and you get connected to a broader audience globally. Because not only are you able to connect with your local market, but then there's other people online, different parts of the world that have access to that, to hear and listen to your music. And two, in terms of like engaging in, you know, conversations and staying social with people online. Sometimes it's hit or miss because online, what the con is that we have to constantly engage with having like visuals, and most people, they say, oh, well, that doesn't really have anything visual. So then you always have to rethink your brand and your representation and the direction that you're going in terms of what you want to do with music.
Oh, those are great points, actually, for sure, how it's ever changing again, right? And so almost the attention span is kind of constantly moving, going, right? Which is a lot of pressure, you know, when you think about it, to kind of keep up on everything. Lucas, what do you think about that? How has that changed for you?
I feel like before, especially before the pandemic, I was definitely out everywhere. I was out every weekend. And then during the pandemic, obviously everything closed down, and it really like forced me to like eventually get out my comfort zone and get on like platforms and start posting stuff everywhere, and especially like Instagram and YouTube, and then eventually and TikTok and everything. It like really like forced me to get out my comfort zone, like I said, because you have to get out there especially during COVID. We had to get out there. And like I can speak for many artists, like a lot of artists, they had to get out there and use different platforms. Yeah, it really definitely pushed people out their comfort zones.
And some people were humbled.
Only way to fly. Absolutely. Keep it humble always, right? That's so interesting. Yeah. You know, I have a great admiration for that, for both of you when you're speaking about that, because, you know, it takes a lot of guts. It really does take a lot of guts to do something like that. And as you had said, step out of your comfort zone. And that speaks to our mental health and that, you know, what we're giving out, you know, that energy that we give out to other people in society, right? Although we're dealing with things internally, you know, we still have to step out of the comfort zone and give it, I guess, so to speak, right? Yeah. Do you find then, when you're sort of in those uncomfortable moments, I guess, can you speak of a growing experience specifically where you think, oh man, I'm so glad I got through that, but I'm so glad I did it.
Especially, I can't remember how many times that's happened to me. It's happened so many times. Especially like after COVID, like after everything started, you know, getting back to normal. I started like performing places again, and when I like wasn't used to being in front of large crowds, and I used to never want to do anything, and I used to just want to stay home and do stuff on just post it on Instagram, and that was it. But I realized that you really eventually you have to like I don't know, you have to get out there, and like even after COVID, because so many people hadn't see you for a while, you have to get out there, and then like you said, like we said, step out of your comfort zone, and it really pushes people, but it eventually works out.
Aieysha, did you want to jump in there? Yeah.
Yeah, and a huge thing too. Virtual performances. That was something that I was doing, and I'm like, this is so new to me because you have to put the camera up, and you can't see your audience. Like I'm used to engaging with a live audience. That was my experience, and it was different just performing behind the screen and being like, okay, well, you guys get what you get. Is it good? Is it bad? I don't know. And then sometimes you have your technical issues, and that is another thing that kind of trips you out. But at the same time, having to rely on the digital electronics and technology to just keep everything going music-wise and staying connected. And it's allowed me to network with different platforms, other artists as well, and even learn about organizations that we didn't know about, that, because there's a lot, like when we think about popularity, there's some favoritism and nepotism with people, people staying in their cliques and offering opportunities that way. And again, like I was happy to even perform for Youth for Change, to have a platform and be able to do that with a live audience. So new opportunities are always out there with the internet and all of that.
And that, that's kind of like the virtual knocking on doors, right? Or knocking down doors in many cases, right? It's creating a platform for yourself and just saying, I'm here, I have a voice and I'd like to be seen and be a part of the conversation, right? So it's, if you can kind of speak to other parts of other performers that you may know, for example, who have gone through some challenges, who may not be able to do something like you're doing, and they're just not able to achieve that because it's not a comfort zone for them. Is there, in pop culture, are you able to kind of get through that bumpy ride,
Well, sometimes, I spoke about the digital aspect of pop culture, and basically the visuals, the need and demand for visuals, and the presence of being there, which Lucas was talking about, and you may not always be comfortable in front of an audience. And I find that, like, with the icons in pop culture, they're always expected to show up, and that's what all artists, but we're always expected to show up, and we need to do this, entertain, and really most of us is just doing it for the passion and the art of it, and not really the money, financial demands. And with pop culture, a lot of it is like, yes, we have this, but also what sells.
That's interesting. You've actually triggered a thought there, and what sells. And so as a performer, you've kind of got a few different prongs, right? So you're a performer, yes, but sometimes motivational speaking, mentoring another, those kind of things. So how does that come into play for both of you, to mentor somebody else? Lucas or Aieysha?
Well, I was gonna just elaborate, like, in some instances we had people like Britney Spears and Doja Cat, and it's like Britney Spears, she had a huge traumatic moment where she was going through something mentally, emotionally, and that was something that she went through in front of the public eye, and she had to really rely on, whether her sanity is going to be torn to bits in the public, which that's what it was. And we seen someone that was mentally deteriorating, but everyone laughed at it. So again, in a sense, like, those icons that represent pop culture are our mentors, in the sense that people look up to them and they're like, oh, I was inspired to do music because there was this artist that did this in the public eye and I really like them. But we don't know their personal stories. We just know them for their music and what is selling and what is being pushed forward to us. So even if they're not aware of it in an indirect way, who they are as artists is what's selling to us, and what we're looking at as a younger generation of, they're pretty much our mentors in a way. we can't necessarily talk to them, but we look at different things and we say, okay, this gives us an idea of who we're talking to and who they are. Like, that's why you never connect with people on platforms on the sense that, look, I'm going to follow this person on Instagram that makes this type of music. You don't do that randomly. You say that there's something that connects you as a viewer to them, whether it's their cultural perspective in terms of the experience they had, or like what's in their sound is something that we relate to.
Nice. Yeah. Lucas.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Aieysha. There, like she said, like there's people out there that like people look up to, and people like even young like NBA players, for example, they've looked up to past NBA players. And and it's just like Aieysha said, if you go on Instagram, you don't just follow someone just to follow them. It's because you like something about them. It's either if they're a singer, you like their voice. If they're like maybe a motivational speaker, you like their opinions. If they're if they're an athlete, you like how they play. Like it really just like it really shows that you like, if you like someone, it'll show. And like, I don't know how to explain it, but
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
We followed you well. I know what you're saying. It's not just about like what we like at a surface level. It goes beyond that. It's the connection of what they're offering us. There's something that's selling. There's something, and it's the authenticity of who they are, and that character. We buy into the character that they're playing publicly. So that's like when they do something that is against what we believe, then we say, whoa, who have we been following?
Exactly.
Like Kanye West and all the craziness that's happening with him all the time.
Yeah, for sort of self-checking, like, oh, yeah, for sure. No, totally. And that's everybody has a story, right? And that's what you're both speaking of, really. Who do we choose to follow? And, what the mask is one thing, and what's underlying is very different sometimes, right? And what do you want to put out there publicly to people? And anybody is like that in anything, whether it be in the teaching field or whatever it is that, people do. There's still a presentation that has to be put out there, and a vulnerability. But it's interesting, because then when you talk about pop culture, let's just say here, for example, in this region, what about internationally, and how pop culture is affected by specifics, for example, things happening in North America, and how that's kind of bridging to other parts of the world, and not necessarily always a good thing, but vice versa too, and things coming here from different parts of the world that are great, that maybe we wouldn't have been exposed to before, but we are, because there is this platform for us to be able to access it more easily. So it's ever changing, I guess, the ever changing landscape, but we have what's popular and why is it popular, for example.
I was just thinking about, like, for example, in 2026, I believe, the World Cup, which is normally in somewhere in Europe, it's coming here. It's coming to Canada and the US and Mexico. So that's bringing something from one side of the world to the other. Literally, it's coming from Europe to North America. And that's just crazy in itself, because it's one of the biggest sports tournaments of all time, and it brings in so much like viewership, and it's so popular in that time, and leading up to it, it gets like so much hype around it, and it just shows like when something comes from one side of the world to another, it can really pop off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. It's unifying, really, when you think about it, right? That I find that super cool and very uplifting, right? I know there was a time where it was just the Olympics, and that was the unifying factor. But now it's just like, there's so much available because we can see it, we can experience it, we can be a part of it. Aieysha, what do you think about that?
Yeah, there's a lot of importance on like the impression and affiliation that we have with public figures, and not only that, but like what the different events and entertainment has to offer us, and how it serves us. Because again, like when you think of World Cup, you have a lot of people from different parts of the world that say, I'm going to choose this country to represent, or I have an affiliation with this country. But again, it's like, how do you see yourself in that? If you're a Torontonian saying that, I want to represent somewhere like Spain, but a lot of times it's people, they have diverse diverse backgrounds, or they have a player that they may like, that they see themselves in, based on their their background in terms of their experience growing up, or different social things that go on. Even like you have to, like when you have a celebrity or any type of icon, or like a business that represents something that is close to your heart, is you always think about, okay, well, why do they stand for that, and what makes them passionate about that, and how's that personal to me? So people are always looking for a way to feel connected and unified, and not so much that they're alone with pop culture. So pop culture always speaks to like the personal experiences that we have, and it develops with time.
Nice. Yeah, that's also, great. Lucas, do you want to jump in, or?
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, I think like that was a great point, Aieysha, about how like it all like comes back. And like same thing like you said about the World Cup, it like if someone like you said, someone from Toronto wants to support someone from a country that's across the world, like we said earlier, it's about like people liking that person in a or liking that country in a specific way. It may be their people, it may be their background culture, it may be the history of the team, it may be the history of the country. It really revolves around like how people view people, and how people view like society and stuff.
Oh, underscore everything. Everything you've both said, underscore that. Very much so, for sure. And there's a pride in that, really, when you think about that. You can be you can show pride for another country even though you're not from that country, right? Which is super cool. And it's so unifying and uplifting when you can support internationally something, or a player or performer or whichever internationally. And that's so cool. It's interesting just to see their perspectives on that. Because when you think about that, that has changed. And even hockey, for example, being this part of the world, players in the past would have said, I'd like to represent my home country, where that would have been Eastern Europe in many cases, right? And that was a real pride factor, and that was acceptable and okay to do that. Even just recently with soccer, right? Same thing. People representing different countries. So yeah, I find it very unifying and uplifting, and it means the landscape is changing, right? Our acceptance is changing, our understanding is changing, economics related to are changing, because there's a lot more, more money you can put into the industry when you're supporting all, right? So no, that's really cool. I'm gonna jump around a little bit, and I'm just looking at so then how does pop culture influence our society? As all of the things we're talking about.
I'd love to chime in and just mention, like, when we think of rap, because I do R&B fusion, but also, hip hop, soul. And so there's like a rap element to my music, even though it's poetic lyricism. So I just wanted to say, like, rap started off as something that was about bringing social change, and we had conscious ideas in the lyrics, which I like to keep my lyrics on par with being some sort of conscious message that's shared, even though it's like my personal experience as well that's wrapped in the sound. So I think with pop culture, the way it's going right now, before we used to hear a lot of sounds where it's like, it's pop, but why is it pop? It's because it's different genres fused into one. But also nowadays, we're seeing rap take the forefront in terms of the conversation with pop culture. And that also influences like the fashion that we have. And again, the sound. So it's like you can hear rap mixed with Afro beats, rap mixed with rock, rap mixed with country. So and still it's people sharing their messages in music. And, it's the key term is having storytelling, like you mentioned before. It's the personal stories that is aimed to be spread and keep everyone connected in that sense. Because not everyone relates to like rap being an inner city person or something like that. But it's a way of taking those devices and using it to keep us connected and keep the conversation going.
No, that's key. Absolutely key. Thank you so much for sharing that. Lucas.
Yeah, definitely about like, for example, if people have like, let's say a singer has someone from across the world have a feature on their song, like maybe a US rapper or a Canadian rapper have a feature from someone from the UK, or somewhere else in Europe. That really ties that, like I said, have like people from around the world, that ties people together. And that ties people from all around the world listening to that song, and then eventually exploring it to other people in their either that genre or from that country. if they like how like their voices or yeah.
And then what's the story regionally, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that can be changing too.
Mhm.
That storytelling message. There can be a lot of commonality with it as well too, but in the same sense, regionally, that landscape changes and that story message changes sometimes.
And sometimes that can be problematic.
Speak to that? Would you mind speaking to that, Aieysha?
To be problematic. Well, again, like with rap, a lot of people identified it and they said like, oh, all it is about like violence and killing and all of that. But again, like for some people, when you're hearing those type of messages, that's what they knew. That was their story because that's their experience. And then for you to be someone coming from the outside and having that type of input, like it's bad, it's terrible. Yeah, it's terrible to your ears, but the reality is that's a reality check that you're also listening to. So we need to make changes in our community too. If you're hearing that come out of your community, you got to wonder, okay, so how come I live and I don't have that experience, but they're over there producing that type of sound? And then there are people who don't necessarily come from those backgrounds, and then they're propelling and those same messages and sharing them with people. And you're like, why are you sharing this message and that's not your reality? So that's when we have the disconnect where we're like, this person, we identify with them, but now that we find out that they're not real in the sense that they have this fake persona or the story and what they're delivering is not all theirs, we're no longer interested. Then we start to vilify them.
That's so well put. Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Lucas, feel free to jump in. I'm just going to let you kind of lead the conversation, both of you.
Yeah, there's cancel culture. I don't know if you want to mention that, Lucas.
Yeah. It's like you said, it's like people from it's like experiences in life. Like you said, like people from like people talking about like rappers talking about violence and all that stuff. It's really like it's really rappers talking about their life experiences, sorry, and what they've gone through. And then there's people talking about having such a high life and loving life and all the time, and then there's other people talking about how they've gone through so much, and they've gone like they went from the bottom to the top.
Yeah, no, for sure. And keeping it real, so to speak, right?
Yeah,
definitely keeping it real. And so, this is just me thinking back to sort of the origins of Motown, right? Like the music and where how rap had started after that. But I've heard other people reference, and it was just a simpler time, and therefore the music was, a simpler time. The message was different. And what would you say? What's the change? What is it?
I feel like years ago, and I feel like years ago it was there was such a balance in rap. There was that somewhat violent side of, or if you want to call it violent side of rap, and then that peaceful side of rap. And then now it's like uneven. There's so much of one and not of the other. And it's really unbalanced at this point. And even for not just rap, it's like the different genres and like the amount of singers. There's so many more rappers than R&B singers or pop singers, or even like Caribbean singers. There's not as many Caribbean singers as there are like maybe singers from the US or somewhere in Europe.
That's true. Yeah, like reggae, dancehall, and again like Afrobeats, Caribbean sounds, and sounds from other parts of the hemisphere. They don't really take center stage when it comes to pop culture right now. It's a lot of heavy support with rap, which I can't even explain why society has moved that way. But again, like there's just this phenomenon with rap taking center stage. And again, it's like people, they're not really doing it for the love of it, but it's a lot of clout chasing, and that takes center stage, and it takes away from the message.
It's really like a lot of it's a lot of people like going up for the money and stuff. And like recently I like Afrobeats have been coming up, and like guys like Burna Boy and Rema, all those guys have really been coming up now.
Yeah, and I was just going to like go off of your point, Lynn, where you mentioned Motown. So Motown, again, like you said, what has changed? With Motown, they originally, I believe, they were going off of the basis of like the social change at that time. It had a lot to do with like freedom fighting and, you know, for again to propel that unity. But again, now we see where rap is something that unites people, but then there's this divide in the message where again, like when you think of women in music, I'll just mention that there's a lot of cattiness going on these days with women going back and forth and, you know, not really paying attention to what their music is doing for the younger generation. Because there's young girls that don't really pick a side in music, but really they're like, oh, I love this person, I love that person, but now they're feuding. So it's like, do we have to pick a side? What is this really about? Because it's not even our fight.
Oh, that's also a great point as well, too. I love that you're both here today. And, you know, I just really want to thank Youth for Change for allowing us to be here, because this conversation is happening because we're allowing this platform to happen. And I thank you both for being here. Lucas, do you want to jump in on that and how it is skewed now? It's quite different than, as you know, Aieysha had mentioned about Motown, very different perspective. There was a social fight going on, but that has shifted because there's an imbalance, more of an imbalance, it seems now.
Yeah. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, go ahead. Yeah, I can put it out there. Yeah.
That was a good point. And I feel like now people don't really think I feel like people don't really rap about, or not just rap, but people don't really sing about themselves. They sing about maybe things that they want to happen or things that they believe are going to happen. But back in the day, like in the 80s and 90s, even in the early 2000s, people were like the icons like Biggie and Tupac and Ice Cube, all those guys, they were all singing about what had happened in their life and what was going on at the time, but never what they wanted to happen and never what they thought was going to happen.
Excellent.
That's an interesting point. Yeah.
That's a really good point for sure. Then, you know, if we're kind of, well, how does that speak to accessibility then? Could you both speak to that? Because that seems what we're talking about, right? In many ways, what is available to people, and if something's not available, then you know you can get a little bit fired up, and you want to get your message out there and say, "Hey, I want some of that too," right?
Yeah. Maybe I agree with that point. Like definitely, like for people maybe wanting rappers or singers to come up with new albums because it's been maybe a long time, or if people want like new soundtracks or anything like that. It's like all that demand, and then it puts so much pressure on people, on like singers and artists. It put pressure on them to like, and then that like going back even to the mental health, that all that stress being put onto people, it really takes a toll on people.
Yeah, and it's like a rabbit hole, right? You know, go down that rabbit hole. It's like, whoosh. Yeah, it's too much. Aieysha, do you want to jump in and elaborate as well?
Yeah, so you mentioned accessibility as a question. So Lucas mentioned that there's a lot of surplus in rap. And again, yes, there's surplus in rap, but also I find with Canada, when it comes to like what you're going to hear on the radio, when you turn on the radio, it's a lot of pop music, country music, rock music. And then a lot of times some of these platforms, they don't want to take R&B, or they don't want music from artists that are, you know, independent. They want to focus more on artists who have labels and things like that. And so a lot of times indie artists get put in the background. And then we had this whole movement of getting CanCon content, which is, you know, having a prioritizing Canadian music and music made in Canada. But again, you turn on your radio, you're hearing Drake, Justin Bieber, The Weeknd, and then they're saying that's CanCon. And so there's not too many opportunities for our artists to be heard, even though things like that, initiatives are taking place for that to happen, as well as you have a lot of people that are talented, but they don't necessarily have the resources to go out and make music, or the resources or the knowledge to know where they can go out and have performances to actually share their music and say, hey, you guys listen to this, but I make this type of music, and my music is actually has a conscious message. So then you're being fed by the masses a particular message that they want to promote, but then you don't really have access to different type of artists. And that's why some people, they're listening to the new stuff, and then you have other people who listen to the old stuff, because again, like you said, the messages were different. So it's about where you fall and how you see yourself in the whole grand scheme of music and pop culture, and where that goes, and the trends too. From what you wear, from what you eat. It's, I would say it's like pop culture is like a lifestyle.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, when you get up every day, it's that lifestyle, right? It's your pop culture lifestyle. That's, it's interesting, because then accessibility, then you think of a mentorship. That's where I kind of come back to that, and how important that is. Because if you don't have the resources, if someone doesn't have the resources and they're really, super good, and it's just a matter of someone discovering their abilities, their talents, and what they have to offer pop culture and society. How does, even for yourself, Aieysha, in terms of a young artist, when you were first starting out, was there someone there to help you? Was there someone there to guide you, to just say, hey, you know what, this might be an avenue you want to explore? Did you have a lot of that available to you? Lucas, same thing. Did you have a lot of that available to you? So I'll just go to Aieysha first and then over to Lucas.
Well, for myself, in terms of starting out with music, it all started with a plan. I'd say a lot of the mentors, we don't even realize who our mentors are, but it starts with who we see as icons. Like for me, it's Patti LaBelle, Tina Turner. I like them. Still to this day, I'll play their music and go for that, but not necessarily everyone from my generation will resonate with that. But again, listening to them, as well as having our teachers, I found like oftentimes with the schools that I went to, we're always lacking in resources to keep funding our music departments and keeping those type of staff on board. And say, why is the music department keep getting canceled every time we're trying to do something? And they're like, oh, we can't do band because we don't have enough instruments. So, some of you guys will learn, some of you guys are not going to learn. So who wants to take gym instead of music? And it's like, what? Mm-hmm. So again, like our teachers are our mentors, as well as having that guidance and development from other people in the industry and hearing what their feedback is. Because again, we can be misguided or misdirected. So you always want to make sure, even though you have a mentor, that you're also cognitive yourself to have discernment and know who you are in the grand scheme of things and what you want to do.
That's key. That's the core right there, right? Yeah, for sure. Know who you are. That's very important, because otherwise you can go either way, right? Lucas, can you jump in there in terms of, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, definitely. Some of the mentors I had were obviously my parents. They really helped me out. Especially like my dad, because he was playing instruments since he was small. And then also people, like when I would go to weddings, all their drummers, like all their Tassa players, I would look up to them. And then, it's really like Aieysha said about band. I'm lucky enough in my school to have a band. I'm lucky enough to play the tenor sax, and it's amazing. But there's a school across from mine that about 3 or 4 years ago, or just before COVID, they had to end their band program because it wasn't being funded. They didn't have enough money to fund it.
Wow. No, and that's, what, I totally appreciate that. I also working in the education field as well as another part of my work that I've done. And you were speaking about that as well, Aieysha, and that's really key, is to
how can we change that?
I would like to know. That's the thing, and that's the funders, and that's where it's enticing the funders, and what did they get out of it? And that speaks to what all of the things that we're talking about here for pop culture, right? It's like there has to be something that they get out of it, and they see that value of mentoring youth for the future. There was in the States, there was a drum corps at one time. Drum corps and marching bands is what people call it, but drum corps has changed now to where you have to really have this high level caliber of experience for performing arts to even be a part of it, where prior to it started for people to get them off the streets in many ways, to teach someone to play drums, to teach someone to play the sax, or to spin that flag, or to do dance on the field with 150 other people who were also learning at the same time. that's now changed, and it's marginalized many people who don't have access to that anymore. And so therefore the mandate, in my opinion, has changed. There's still room for that. And I think that's how do you entice the funders? It's presenting a package to say, hey, you know what? It's a win-win for the whole community. It's a win-win for everybody. And that's what has to sell right there. So I guess it's building a team, building a bridge to the future, with our future, which is youth, and just getting our youth out there and shining light on what can be done, right? It might be that it might be a youth team that gets the funders, and it might be something completely that some people have never thought about, but it's going to be the youth that tell us where to go. Aieysha, you were going to say?
Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but honestly, like as a youth, I find that growing up, we always knew what we wanted, what we needed, but no one ever asked. No one had ever asked us, hey, we're going to do budget cuts, but we're going to get rid of the music department. Just letting you guys, no one would ever, we just find out a music teacher would come in and say, hey guys, so this is the last test, and it's not happening anymore.
And that's sad. Right?
Yeah, it is. And then again, like you said, that with the marching corps, band corps, that's something they have to have experience to come in and do that now. Like the criteria is changing. And I find like throughout my stage of development and my growth with music, a lot of the times I'm like, I can't have access to the opportunity because myself, I don't play an instrument, although I'm a singer-songwriter. And the way I write, some people are like, do you play an instrument? Because the way you sing is like you play an instrument, but I'm like, I don't play an instrument. I never had the opportunity to go out and learn an instrument, even though I could have, but it's just something that I couldn't afford coming up, you know what I'm saying? So we turn to our education system, and community programs and the different resources that are out there, and hope that they can provide us with those type of things so we can benefit from that. And again, like our family, if we have family members or other people in those same industries that do that. So again, you don't always have the time to explore those things with not having the resources. I don't think that's on pop culture topic, sort of.
Okay, no, it's all good. It kind of underlying core themes, right?
But I think that's very important to development and where changes are going. So that's something that we need to look at. Yeah.
Yeah, and where changes are going in accessibility. I think that's pop culture is accessibility. How does everyone have access to it, right? And when you think about even just an instrument, for example, the program that I was in through Drum Corps, they were handing instruments to families, and they were knocking on doors and saying, we have something for your child. We have something to include your child in the community. And many of those musicians went on to teach, because they got so good, and that they were sought after and international. All right. So that's what you want. You want someone to say, okay, you know what? Let's get down to work. Let's get down to the nitty gritty. You got to start somewhere. You got to provide the resources. And even, for example, there was a kickboxing in Montreal. There was a guy I was talking to, and his program is providing used gloves for people. It's a way to people, to give people an opportunity to do something else. It may not be the most popular thing for all, but that was something that this gentleman wanted to do. He really wanted to provide a program where he could get people off the street, so to speak, give them something else to do. And, he knocked on doors, and he's providing those gloves for people, but he wants to do more, but he had to start somewhere. All right. So that's sort of a sidebar conversation. Do you mind if I kind of go back into talking to you as artists and shining light on both of you a little bit? Is that okay? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to just kind of double back on Aieysha for a moment. And we mentioned that Aieysha is a R&B, hip hop, soul fusion singer-songwriter. And one of the quotes I read out there was sonically captivating and invigorating with unpredictability, wit, vividness, and vibrancy. Yeah, so that sounds like a really cool description. And one of the quotes I read from you, Aieysha, I'm just going to read it again. We spoke off camera about it, and you said, define power in your own words. It is our authenticity and the willingness to share our gifts that cultivates the power. And that's what we're talking about, to share our gifts.
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. It starts with, having the passion. It's like when you, like I said, behind these icons that we have, there's passion and there's power because they all started out saying, I wanted to do this, and why did you want to do this? So it's about who are you and the why behind what you do in your musical pursuits and whatever you dream and you desire. And if you want to achieve other things and go further beyond that in terms of what you want to do with your hopes and aspirations, you have to look within and say, what's my power? What can I do? Because along the way, there are naysayers and people who will try to discourage you with what you do and what you want to create. But again, at the end of the day, you know your vision and you just have to stick to it. So that's kind of the message that I wanted to send there. I think I remember now, it was like a little clip that I had on my Instagram with the Aretha song in the background. So it's like, yeah, I think she was singing, I know that's a fact. And it's basically like, you need to be assertive in who you are and have confidence and know that whatever you dream and desire, it's possible as long as you have the belief in what your passion and your power is. Because if you love something, that can always keep it going. You watch a cartoon, it's like, how does the superhero always win and become the champion? It's like, they always had the love and the drive to do what they did. And they never stopped. They didn't go in and say, I'm going to go in this way, hate. It was love that kept them united and kept other people investing into their vision and their idea and their purpose.
Yeah, no, right on. I was thinking like dreaming is free, right? It's that's
Absolutely.
we can all do, and no one can take that away from you. It's your own, it's your dream, it's your desire, your passion.
Right. And dreams do come true, right? And, you either have a sweet dream or a nightmare. So which one do you want it to be? Yeah.
Absolutely. Cultivate the sweet one.
Absolutely.
For sure. And it's always at the end of the day, you're self-checking, right? What's your purpose? Where do you want to go with this? And that kind of thing. I wonder, Lucas, if you can jump in and just speak about that for yourself and the work that you do. I know originally we had Aieysha scheduled as an artist to be here. I'm really glad that you joined us as an artist as well, because I've seen you perform as well as Aieysha. And I think that's something to shine light on here. So I wondered if you could speak to that.
It's really just it's just a passion that people like. It's the passion that people have, and it kind of sucks when you look at youth and there's not as many young people doing it, and that's one of the reasons why I love like the Youth for Change and stuff, because it really empowers young people. And even like with what I do, it sucks that because there's not as many young kids doing what I do, and I'm glad that because I've looked at my little cousins and they've all been like, oh, can you teach me and stuff, and that just proves that like I have people that want to do what I do, and it's just amazing that like I have people that look up to us, and like even people older than me, like the people that I look up to. It's just like the passion that they have to keep doing it, and people have been doing it for all their lives.
Wow, it's a lifestyle, right?
Yeah,
for sure. That's really cool. And can you just remind our viewers again what type of drumming you do?
So I play a Trinidadian drum. It's called Tassa, and then I also play a Indian drum called Dholak and tabla.
Wow. And for each instrument, how long did it take you to learn? I know you're still learning. We're always learning. Generally speaking. Yeah.
So I've been playing Tassa since I was 6 or 7, I believe. I got one for Christmas. And I somewhat taught myself on YouTube. And then maybe around 3 or 4 years ago, I finally went to a teacher. And then he taught me everything that I know. And then for the tabla and Dholak, I've been playing all my life. Those I'm playing since I was around 3 years old. My dad started teaching me, and then I went to a teacher. And then after COVID, my dad started teaching me again because couldn't go to the teacher. But yeah, pretty much all my life.
All your life. Wow, that's incredible. And you're always evolving and growing, right? And trying new things, experimenting and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you ever think then, just double back for a sec, if you could, spend time teaching somebody else what you're talking about previously, like a club? I know we've referred to that as before. There just never seems to be enough resources. Do you need a lot of resources to take on, let's say, the Tassa,
Yeah, it really depends on who you have with you in your life. Like I had my dad, so I started when I finally went to a teacher, I knew the basics of what I was doing, and I had already been playing for about 3 or 4 years. So it really helped. That really helped me. Um, but yeah, for Tassa, I would like you said, I would personally when I get older, I want to start teaching younger kids, and I want to have younger kids come to like even classes, and even like you said, a club, and have people have young kids learn how to play the drums, and but yeah.
Mhm. And when you think about that, you can include a lot of community stuff there. You can
Yeah,
include the city,
yeah.
library, you can have somebody come in and take a look, the media come in and take a look at what you're
Mhm.
doing, right? Lots of ways to shine light and then build resources from there, right?
Yeah.
Well, that's really cool. I know, my husband's actually a self-taught drummer and he's really good. And yeah, and I was always impressed with that. And I thought, wow, how did you do that? But I used to just love watching him. And then I'd actually jump in as well too. And I learned how to do some, basics with him. But yeah, and I'm so impressed when someone can do that. And Aieysha, what about yourself and in terms of offering what you do in a more of a club capacity? I know it sounds like community capacity, I guess, where you would offer your knowledge or your service to a person up and coming who could spend time with you and learn. Is that something you see yourself
I
in?
think, yeah, absolutely. I think just being who I am is one part of, having an influence on other people. Like I said, just because you're an artist, you think, oh, well, whether it's at a local level, global level, you're not really sure of who you influence. But again, you're always being watched. There's someone out there who is enjoying what you're putting out there. Don't ever think that no one's not listening or observing what's being done. So I think that, there are little people out there that say, hey, I like what you do. And by little people, I mean young children, not like little people. But yeah, so there are people out there that enjoy that as well. I think as it goes on, I want to be someone who develops with everything that I'm learning musically and just having my own experience to bring programs to other people for them to have opportunities and platforms and things that I didn't have access to or I wasn't aware of, and to be able to have take part and participate in that, things like open mics and even vocal classes. And with them having the option to do that and not being charged, or that it's a safe environment where no one's taking advantage of you or anything like that of that nature, and that they have someone that they can trust and talk to. Because really, my goal is to just be me and to, I think authenticity sells, and as well as, passion is very important. I think sometimes when people take on certain jobs, it's like, why were you doing it in the first place? And sometimes they lose sight of the fact that it started with passion. And when you fall out of love with something, then it no longer serves any purpose for you or other people who you're servicing. And I think that music is something that I've always been in love with. And I even took a break from it a long time ago. And then I came back and I found out that this was something that, I was always passionate about. So the love never died for me. And I think I'll keep going with that and inspire other people to be passionate about music too.
Wow, that sounds like a song right there. Really, that's incredible. And we've got a little bit more time here, a few more minutes, maybe, and then we'll kind of wrap up our conversation shortly. But I wondered if there's anything that you wanted to cover in terms of an artist you'd like to shine light on, of anything that's upcoming for you. I'll start with Aieysha and then Lucas. Anything that you could shine light on that's a future show that you're doing, or where they can reach out to you on social media, anybody that's listening or watching today?
Well, with myself, I am working on new music. Definitely there's things to be heard and coming out soon. There was a little bit of a preview of something that I had rolling out recently online in Youth for Change. I think it was online. It made it online. I'm not sure, but it's definitely out there floating around. But also, I like to again utilize my personal platform, because when you have an Instagram, even as an individual, or like a Twitter, any type of platform, but like definitely social media wise, when you have those type of things, that's a resource for you to connect with a bigger audience. And I think sharing, a part of what I like to do is just sharing my quotes and little thoughts and ideas. And I think it helps other people to just stop and reflect on their own day and their lifestyle and say, hey, you know what? That's something for me to think about, you know? And I think I'm doing something with it. Actually, I'm going to say, I know I'm doing something with it where someone can look at that and take it in and, you know, be inspired, you know, inspired, empowered, all of that. But again, yeah, new music is coming. That's coming out very soon. I'm not going to give too much away, but I definitely have a message in my next piece of work that's aimed towards unity, because that's definitely a theme that I like. And I think life is very important. And again, like the theme of love. So love, life, unity. Those are my big three in terms of music. And again, it always leads back to like the emotional intelligence perspective of things. So again, if anybody's interested in checking me out, I'm Aieysha Haws. I make R&B, hip hop, soul fusion, singer, songwriter, and I'm on all platforms.
Wow. Underscore love, life, and unity, and put the unity back in community, right?
Well, nothing without community, really.
Right?
It's
Yeah.
true.
Oh, it's true. Yeah, very much. Yeah, it's our heartbeat. Definitely our heartbeat for sure. Lucas, do you have any questions for Aieysha before we switch over to you?
Oh yeah, Aisha, how long have you been like singing?
I've been singing since I would say 6, not professionally, but like, you know, it all starts with the drive there. I used to go in the closet and dress up and pretend that I'm like somebody famous doing something, doing a little performance, and I come out the closet and doing that. But in terms of going out and actually interacting with people and doing my thing, I started doing that around 12. And I released my first single 2021. That was around the pandemic time, and that was something that I was working on for a long time. And then it got delayed with the pandemic. And then I said, you know what? Let me just roll it out and see what this does for everybody. And from there, it just led to a lot of new opportunities and open doors for me. And I was happy to see, you know, just the developments and how I was able to grow with that and connect with other people. So really, when it comes to writing my own music and singing, that's something that I don't see myself stop doing. And again, like inspiring a younger generation of people and to share a conscious message as well. That's what I stand for now. For now and forevermore in the foreseeable future, I'd say.
So your 6-year-old self looking at you now, present day, would think, wow, you know, look where I have arrived to, you know. So all of those changes in between, right? Yeah.
It's crazy because, you know, it's always been my dream to sing. I used to say I want to be a singer when I grow up. And then at some point I got older and I said, okay, I'm going to go and study law. And I was doing some studies with law and psychology and things like that. And then I took a break from it and I said, you know what, let me go back to music. Even my most recent release, Turmoil, that was something that I wrote when I was in high school. And then I kind of put away. It was originally supposed to be a reggae song. And then I revisited and I said, you know what, let me put this out and see and experiment with the sounds. So it came out and it was like an R&B kind of fusion, like type of rock influence. But again, like the writing is kind of hip hop. So again, I want to introduce a different style because I'm always experimenting with my sound and see where that goes and how the audience takes it. But really, I opened up, we get like middle school yearbooks. So I had a middle school yearbook and somebody sent me a photo of what I said my dream job was in my quote, and my dream job was singer. And I'm like, I'm surprised because I was going down a different path of studying something else, which I was less passionate about. Because studying law, I said I wanted to like advocate for other people and, you know, just help people in the community. But then at the same time, I'm somebody with a big heart. So I'm like, you know, how much in this job can I pour into this where I'm not going to be taking it too personal? So I said, like, you know, let me do music. So I'm really taking music seriously now. And I think that's something I can go very far in doing. And I'm sure of myself. I'm confident about it.
That's cool. I find that
I'm saying this out loud.
You're making it real.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's so cool to hear you say that, the affirmation of that. That's takes a lot of guts, right? In my opinion. So, no, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. And thanks for asking that, Lucas. What about yourself, Aieysha, for Lucas? Or Lucas, can you take us down the next steps for you? And then maybe Aieysha can jump in with a question.
Yeah. I really want to start. I want to start getting out there, performing at more events, and getting. I want to start performing at weddings. That's what I really want to start doing. And then later on in life, my dream job would be to play professional volleyball somewhere in Europe. And then backup would be joining the RCMP, which I would love to do because helping out the community, helping out people in Canada and stuff.
Wow.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
always keeping drumming in my back pocket, as my backup if I ever need one.
Yeah, that comes in handy for corporate meetings,
Yeah.
It's a good release. Absolutely. Everybody doing paradiddles or something on the table, Nice, nice. And that speaks to sort of left and right brain learning, right? We need both, right? To kind of get through this life, right? Keep a balance. Aieysha, do you have any questions for Lucas before we kind of wrap up our...
Yes, I did. I've been actively listening as well as participating in the conversation. And something that I noticed is instrumentation is very important to you. So I just wanted to know, how do you see yourself as someone who developed playing the Tassa and other people, like other youth? How do you feel like it can keep going culturally and keep that the legacy of it going with the youth, apart from possibility of opening community and having those resources? Like, how can you share that on a broader platform?
Yeah, so like you said, so that was one of the reasons why I made my Instagram account, is because I wanted to share what I do with other people. And there's so many young people on Instagram, and I wanted to share that with younger people. And then eventually when I go out places and I perform at events, have young kids see me and maybe them saying, "Oh, I want to do what he does," and then them starting to play. But yeah, just having motivation for what people do, and I would love to inspire people. Yeah.
That's cool. And so if people wanted to follow you, Lucas, how would they? Yeah.
So on Instagram, at Tassa by Lucas. So on Instagram, and I do not have a Facebook, but I don't have TikTok or anything. But yeah, mainly Instagram is what I use the most.
Yeah, that's cool. We'll make sure that we put that in our post as well too, so that people can reach out to you as well. Anything else? Any words of wisdom for both of you that you would like to share moving forward? It's a question I'd like to wrap up with. So I'll go to Aieysha.
I think I wrote something down here. I don't want to put this on a long tangent, but I was having a conversation with a friend the other night, and they're another musician. And basically I was telling them, like, home is where the house is. I mean, the heart is where the home is. Home is where the heart is. Sorry. Home is where the heart is, basically, is what I was saying. And they're like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, you may not always see yourself as seen, but as long as you're passionate, it's something that's always going to bring you back to you. And the home is personal, and that's something internally, and the external is also the home. So it's like there may be external influences, but internally you always have that passion that comes from your heart. So home is where the heart is. Wow. Which is obviously like an already popular saying, but it's like my way, my perspective, or the way I interpret it was a lot different.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Lucas.
Yeah, just never give up on your dreams. Whatever you dream to do, strive for it. Whatever you want to do in the future, strive for it. Don't let anybody tell you different. Yeah, always chase for your dreams.
No matter what your parents say. Just joking.
But yeah, like even like Aieysha, in your case, like you said back in middle school, you had that quote, and you said that you wanted to be a singer. Like I said, chase your dreams, like Aieysha did.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Wow. Is that I think that's the final note.
Yeah, never stop learning, never stop growing, and see everybody as a teacher too. Again, like sometimes you think that I may know so much and with age, but again, like in youth, they always have something to inspire and teach us, because like even a kid, like you look at little kids, they're always talking and saying random stuff, but the little sounds that they make, that can be like a whole melody in a song. So it's like creativity comes from that inner youth and, your inner child. So that's something that's very important. And from the inner child comes our dreams and our ideas. And, we grow up as an adults. And then when we grow up, sometimes we turn away and forget about those ideas.
Mhm.
But again, home is where the heart is, and the heart is the child. It's you. It's everything. It's what you believe is your purpose. It's your power. It's your passion.
Mhm. You are your own gatekeeper, right? Awesome. Wow. Lucas?
I don't know how I'm going to compete with that.
I'm gonna have to start writing these down. Oh my goodness. I've been so fortunate.
I spend a lot of time in my mind and just thinking about life in general. But I hope that it can help. What I say, the random stuff that I say, it helps somebody else.
You know what I know? You're present, and I think Lucas as well. You're both very present, and I think that's key, right? Because part of this conversation, I'm feeling your presence, I'm feeling your input, and I really appreciate that. And I'm sure wherever you go and whatever you do on your daily basis, people feel that as well, and you just express. I don't know. It's more. it's a variety of things, and it just at ease. Actually, you put people at ease, both of you. So thank you for doing that.
It's our personal power.
Right? Right? Yeah, for sure. For sure. So I would love to have you back again, both of you, in whatever capacity that might be for any of our future programs. And I do want to take a moment to thank both of you for being here and shining light on your work, shining light on your knowledge, but also you as young people as well, contributing to Youth for Change Canada's program and Spotlight on Youth Matters. I've been very humbled to be here tonight with you, and I thank all of you for watching. Shout out to Youth for Change Canada. Follow us on social media. Again, give us a like, and be sure to put in any comments in terms of future programming, anything you'd like to see. We'll make it happen for you. Get involved and volunteer. There's other ways to get involved as well. Give back to your community, and thank you for our guest today for giving back to the community. My name is Lynn McEntee. I've been your humble host. I'll give a moment to say thank you to Lucas and Aieysha, and wish our viewers well, and see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.